Hey guys, Nintendo just announced Skyward Sword HD, and I am excited! I was worried Nintendo would run out of ports, but it seems that Nintendo is now porting Wii games to the Switch. Not a lot of people own the Wii, only like 100 million or so, and I'm glad Skyward Sword is coming, because this is a new Mario Kart for them. But what if you want to play the latest entry in the Mario Kart series Skyward Sword HD early? What do? Track down a physical copy for $35 or so. It's on the Wii, but the controllers don't drift and actually work. Or you could get the system that only one person owned the Wii U and download it for $20. I just saved you a lot of money, and although you're missing button controls, it's the same game. Have fun, and you're burning calories as a bonus.
You are now watching The Meech.
Jokes aside, that's kinda how I and many others feel about The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD. From what I've seen, it appears to be a port of the original Skyward Sword on Wii, upscaled to HD, with 60 frames per second and button controls. When I saw it in the Nintendo Direct, I wasn't even sure if it was a remake, because the game looks so similar to the original. Now I know what some of you are thinking, why is there a lot of backlash to Skyward Sword HD, when Nintendo had The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker HD, and Twilight Princess HD before? Join me in this video to go over the problems with Skyward Sword HD, and what they mean for Nintendo. Let's take a look at the title of the game, The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD. When there's a HD or 3D in the 3DS's case's moniker at the end of a title, it implies that it's a remake. We had remakes of Ocarina of Time along with Majora's Mask on the 3DS, along with the previously mentioned Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD on Wii U. It's debatable whether or not the term remake or remaster applies, but the point is that they are all enhanced from the original games and reworked to look and play better. Take a look at Ocarina of Time 3D. The models and textures were redone to look better on modern hardware, along with quality of life improvements, a few new additions, and stuff like that. In other words, a lot of effort was put in to set the remake apart from the original game. How about the Wind Waker HD? After all, this is more comparable to Skyward Sword HD, considering it's an HD remake. As you can see, Wind Waker HD looks noticeably better than the original on GameCube. The lighting is a lot better in Wind Waker HD. The models and textures also look much better as well. There are also a ton of quality of life improvements, such as making certain moments in the game less tedious to complete, adding gamepad support, and making things like using inventory smoother with a gamepad, and overall refining the game. In other words, a lot of effort was put in to separate the game apart from the original to make it the definitive experience. Now let's take a look at Twilight Princess HD. While the difference is less drastic, things such as textures are updated to take advantage of the Wii U's HD, lighting is improved, and the quality of life improvements were added. Amiibo functionality is also in the game, with the new Wolf Link amiibo. Regardless of if these are remakes or remasters, whatever you want to call them, effort was put in to make the games better than the originals by improving the models, textures, lighting, adding quality of life improvements, as well as new additions such as Hero Mode. I will admit that the Twilight Princess HD remake is a bit iffy. The textures are improved, but it does largely look the same. But there was some effort put in besides simply porting it. So with Skyward Sword HD, you would think it would get the same treatment, right? From what it appears, it's essentially the Wii game upscaled to HD via emulation. What this means that it's essentially like playing the game on Dolphin. The textures aren't improved, the models aren't improved, this is literally just the original 2011 Wii game, but upscaled to HD. Think Super Mario Galaxy and Super Mario 3D All-Stars. That version of the game upscaled it to HD, added button controls, and that's kinda it. Having the HD moniker may technically be true, but it usually implies the game is enhanced and not a simple upscaled port. And about Super Mario Galaxy and 3D All-Stars, that was one game in a collection of 3 games for $60, which leads us into the next issue people have with the game. Nintendo has been notorious in recent times for porting Wii U games to the Switch, with minimal additions for the full price of $60. There are some rare exceptions where the port adds enough new content to justify the price tag, such as in Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury's case, but most of the time, there's minimal difference between the original on Wii U and Switch version. New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe is a great example of this. It's actually worse than the original because it removed content and only added an easy mode, which also made 4-player co-op unbalanced since at least one player would have to choose a character with a handicap, being Toadette or Nabbit. And as much as I love Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, it only added an easy mode. Granted, it was a new funky mode, but memes aside, it simply isn't a big enough change to justify charging full price. If the game is old enough that it originated on another system, it shouldn't be full price. Most of these Wii U ports should be $20 to $30 max. A lot of the games did drop down to $20 when they became part of the Nintendo Selects line. But let's take a look at the current situation. Nintendo is now charging $60 for what is essentially an upscaled port of Skyward Sword, with button controls and a better frame rate. all stuff an emulator can do. The problem isn't that it's a port, it's the fact that it's unbelievably overpriced. The Wii U had Virtual Console, where the Wii games were priced at $20 each, very fair considering that they were older games. In fact, the Virtual Console was a shining example of how to do ports. They were reasonably priced, plentiful, and played well. The Virtual Console also covered almost every Nintendo console. It was a great way for new fans to experience the history of the company and their favorite series, and for older fans to replay these games. Nintendo was charging 3 times the price for something that cost $20 last generation. That's like if Nintendo ported Nintendo 64 games to the Wii during its heyday and charged $50 for them, which was full price for Wii games. And by the way, both Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD were $50 for a standalone copy, and those were actual remakes with effort put in. All that's changed here are the controls to suit buttons, and it's upscaled to HD and 60 frames per second. That right here is the main reason why people are so upset with the game. It's extremely overpriced for what it is. If Nintendo made a Sword of Zelda 3D All-Stars collection with Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, and Skyward Sword, and they were just ports for $60, I think that would be fair. But this is $60 for one upscaled port. Not a remake or remaster, if you will. Potato, potato, tomato, tomato. But $60 for a simple upscale that any emulator can do. Overall, what are the problems with Skyward Sword HD? The HD moniker is somewhat misleading if I'm going to be completely honest, because it usually means the game is enhanced compared to the original in quite a few ways. But the biggest problem is the fact that it's $60 for a simple port. I'm fine with Nintendo porting games, but they need to be priced fairly, because this is highway robbery. If you don't think this is right, please, don't buy the game. There are too many people who will complain who end up saying, I'm still going to pick up the game anyway. Let Nintendo know that this isn't okay. I'm honestly worried that this is just the beginning of for what's to come. What if the reason that they didn't include Super Mario Galaxy 2 and 3D All-Stars is because they're planning on making Super Mario Galaxy 2 HD that's just an upscaled port advertised to have new button controls and costs $60 as well? What if they make Donkey Kong Country Returns HD that's just an upscale with button controls for $60? The point I'm trying to get across is that this could cause a snowball effect where Nintendo ports Wii games to the Switch for $60 because they are straight out of Wii U ports but have plenty of Wii games to port. Like I said before, I would love to have Wii games on the Switch. I would love to have GameCube games on the Switch. Heck, I would even love Virtual Boy games on the Switch. But charging $60 for games that originally cost $50 and eventually $20 is not cool. It takes advantage of naive new consumers while alienating older consumers. And while this may work for Nintendo in the short term, it will come back to haunt them. There are only so many times you can tick off your consumers before they leave. I really hope Nintendo stops these shady practices because I'm very passionate about them and their products, and I'd hate to see them go down the dark path that they're headed towards. But in all honesty, the biggest way that they'll get the message is if we don't buy Skyward Sword HD. But if you feel like you really want to get it, just wait for it to be on sale for $30 or so, or get it used, because it is absolutely not worth the price of a brand new game. So there you have it. This concludes my little rant on Skyward Sword HD, along with the reasons why people are upset about it. Things could change. It may have more that we don't know about, but in its current state, it's essentially a $60 upscale with button controls. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are, so let me know in the comments. Anyways, thanks for watching, and keep calm and da-da on.